October 18, 1989. Blackwater Fire Station Number 3 sat quietly on the northern edge of Helena, Montana, surrounded by endless pine forests and lonely mountain roads. The station had served the county for more than 40 years, responding to everything from chimney fires to highway pileups during brutal winter storms. Most firefighters believed every station had its own personality. Some stations felt welcoming. Some always seemed unlucky. Blackwater Station felt tired. The old brick building groaned every time the temperature dropped. Water pipes rattled behind the walls. The garage doors screamed whenever they opened, and the station alarm occasionally activated in the middle of the night without any emergency call coming through. After a while, nobody questioned it anymore. The older firefighters simply shrugged. Old buildings make old noises. That was always the explanation. Captain Jack Morrison had heard those noises for 18 years. At 41 years old, he was one of the most respected firefighters in Lewis and Clark County. He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the fastest. But everyone trusted his decisions. That trust had been earned through years of crawling into burning homes while everyone else crawled out. Jack had saved children trapped inside apartment fires. He had carried elderly couples through collapsing staircases. He had survived flashovers that should have killed him. More than once. Every scar on his hands had a story. Every wrinkle around his eyes came from smoke, exhaustion, and years of sleepless nights. He never called himself a hero. Heroes died trying to prove something. Jack believed firefighters survived because they stayed calm. Panic killed people, not fire. It was just after 10:30 p.m. Rain tapped softly against the station windows. Inside the kitchen, 3 firefighters sat around an old wooden table drinking stale coffee. Lieutenant Mike Donovan, 36, flipped through yesterday's newspaper. Firefighter Eric Hughes, 27, complained about the coffee as he always did. Tastes like somebody filtered it through an old boot. Mike laughed. You've been saying that for 3 years. Because it's true. Jack poured himself another cup anyway. Coffee isn't supposed to taste good. It's supposed to keep you awake. Eric sighed dramatically. I'd rather fall asleep. The room filled with quiet laughter. The television mounted in the corner played local weather. The meteorologist pointed toward a large storm system moving across western Montana. Heavy rainfall is expected throughout the night, with strong winds reaching 40 miles per hour in higher elevations. Drivers are advised to avoid Blackwater Ridge Road due to reduced visibility. Mike looked toward Jack. Think we'll get many calls tonight? Jack shrugged. Storm nights are unpredictable. They're either completely dead or absolute chaos. The station bell remained silent. No alarms, no dispatches, only rain. For nearly an hour, nothing happened. Eric eventually stretched across the couch in the day room. If nobody burns anything tonight, I'm calling this my easiest shift all year. Jack smiled without looking up from his paperwork. You just cursed us. Eric rolled his eyes. I don't believe in curses. Mike chuckled. You will. At exactly 11:47 p.m., every light inside the station flickered. Once, twice, then stabilized. Nobody reacted. Storms often caused power fluctuations. Jack continued filling out maintenance reports until the emergency alarm exploded through the building. A deafening metallic bell echoed across every room. Instantly, conversation stopped. Coffee cups hit the table. Chairs scraped backward. Training took over. Within seconds, every firefighter was moving. Boots, coats, helmets, air packs. No wasted motion. No shouting. Everyone knew exactly what to do. The dispatcher came over the station speaker. Blackwater Engine 3. Respond to a reported residential structure fire. Possible occupants trapped. Location. There was a pause. Longer than normal. The dispatcher sounded strangely uncertain. 742 Black Pine Road. Jack frowned while fastening his turnout coat. Mike looked confused. Black Pine Road. Eric shook his head. I've never heard of it. Jack walked toward the radio. Dispatch. Repeat location. Static. Then, 742 Black Pine Road. Jack grabbed the county road atlas hanging beside the wall. His finger quickly traced every road north of Helena. Blackwater Ridge, Pine Creek, Old Mill Road, Cedar Hollow. Nothing called Black Pine Road. He checked again. Still nothing. Dispatch. This is Engine 3. I can't locate Black Pine Road. Silence. Then the dispatcher answered. It appears on our system. Nearest landmark. Another pause. The old Harper farm. Mike whispered. The Harper farm burned down years ago. Jack looked at him. You sure? Mike nodded slowly. I was a volunteer back then. There hasn't been a house there since. He stopped talking, trying to remember. Maybe 15 years. Eric laughed nervously. So we're responding to a house. That doesn't exist? Nobody answered, because dispatch interrupted again. This time, her voice sounded different, almost frightened. Engine 3. Please respond immediately. I've received. She hesitated. Multiple calls. Jack frowned. Multiple callers? Yes. How many? Silence. Then quietly, I don't know. Jack felt something strange settle into his chest. Dispatch always knew. Addresses, caller names, phone numbers, cross streets. Tonight, she sounded like she was reading information she'd never seen before. The engine roared to life. Rain hammered against the windshield as the massive red truck rolled out of Station 3. Jack sat in the passenger seat beside Mike. Eric and firefighter Sam Peterson prepared equipment in the rear. The emergency lights painted the wet streets in flashing red. The radio remained strangely quiet. No updates, no additional units. Only Engine 3, responding alone to a fire on a road that wasn't on any map. As the station disappeared behind them, Jack looked once in the side mirror. For just a second, he thought he saw someone standing beside the garage doors. A firefighter, wearing an old turnout coat, completely still, watching the engine leave. The lightning flashed, and the figure was gone. Jack said nothing, because he told himself it was only the rain. The rain grew heavier as Engine 3 left the city limits behind. Its headlights carved two narrow tunnels through the darkness. Beyond them, nothing existed except pine trees and endless black mountains. Captain Jack Morrison unfolded the county road atlas across his lap once more. He traced every highway, every county road, every logging trail. Nothing. There was still no Black Pine Road. Mike kept one hand on the steering wheel while adjusting the windshield wipers. They're already at full speed. Rain hammered against the glass so violently it almost sounded like gravel. Visibility dropped to less than 50 feet. This storm came out of nowhere. Jack nodded. It wasn't supposed to hit until after midnight. Eric's voice came from the rear cabin. You think dispatch got the address wrong? Jack answered immediately. Dispatch doesn't guess. But, he looked down at the map again. I've never seen a road disappear from a county map. The radio crackled. Engine 3. Dispatch's voice returned. This time, she sounded relieved they had answered. Status update. Jack grabbed the microphone. Approximately 8 minutes from the reported location. A pause. Then, Captain, you need to hurry. Jack frowned. How many occupants? Silence. Longer this time. Finally, unknown. Any reports of children? Unknown. Elderly? Unknown. Caller identification? Nothing. Only static. Then, very quietly, they wouldn't tell me. Jack slowly lowered the microphone. Mike glanced toward him. That wasn't normal. No, it wasn't. The engine climbed higher into the mountains. Road signs became rare. Streetlights disappeared completely. Only the rotating emergency lights reflected against wet tree trunks. Everything else vanished into darkness. Sam Peterson finally spoke from the rear. 29 years old. Quiet. Methodical. The youngest firefighter on the crew. You guys ever hear of Harper Farm? Mike nodded. My father mentioned it once. What happened? Mike stared through the windshield. It burned. When? Long before you joined. Electrical fire? Mike slowly shook his head. They never figured it out. Jack looked toward him. You were there. Mike nodded. I was 18. Volunteer firefighter. We found. He stopped. His jaw tightened. Nothing. Jack frowned. What do you mean nothing? The fire was real. The house was real. But after it was over, there weren't any bodies. No furniture. No family. No records. It was almost like... Mike looked uncomfortable saying it. The house had never existed. Silence settled inside the cab. Even Eric stopped joking. Jack looked through the side window. The pine forest seemed endless. Every tree looked exactly the same. Every curve in the road looked familiar. Too familiar. He checked the odometer. They had driven nearly 15 miles since leaving town. Yet, the surroundings hadn't changed. Not once. He quietly asked, Mike, you sure we're moving? Mike frowned. What? Jack pointed outside. Look, every few hundred feet, the same fallen pine tree appeared beside the road, broken in exactly the same place. Lightning struck. For a split second, Jack could have sworn he'd seen it before. Again and again. Mike slowed slightly. I don't like this. Neither did Jack. The dispatcher called again. More static this time. Engine 3. Respond. Jack answered. Go ahead. What's your current location? Jack looked out the windshield. County Route 9. The dispatcher hesitated. No, you're not. Jack frowned. What? According to GPS, you're stationary. Everyone inside the truck looked at one another. Mike immediately checked the speedometer. 48 miles per hour. The engine was clearly moving. Rain streaked across the windshield. Trees rushed past outside. Yet dispatch insisted they weren't moving. Jack pressed the radio button again. Our speed is 48. We've been driving nearly 20 minutes. The dispatcher answered almost in tears. No, I've been watching your unit marker. It hasn't moved. Since you left the station, nobody spoke, not even Eric. Suddenly, the GPS screen blinked. The digital map disappeared. Then one sentence slowly appeared across the display. No road, no coordinates, only 6 words. You are off the map. The screen immediately went black. Sam leaned forward. Did everybody see that? Jack nodded. Nobody wanted to admit it, but everyone had seen exactly the same message. The engine rounded another sharp bend. Without warning, the rain stopped, instantly, as though they'd driven through an invisible wall. The windshield remained soaked, but outside, the forest was completely dry. Not a single raindrop fell. Mike whispered, That's impossible. Jack looked behind them through the side mirror. The highway behind the engine was still covered in heavy rain. Ahead, dry pavement stretched into darkness. It was as though the storm refused to cross whatever invisible line they had just passed. Then, something appeared ahead. A wooden road sign, crooked, weathered, barely standing. Mike slowed the engine. Jack stepped out with a flashlight. The beam illuminated faded white letters carved into old cedar wood. Black Pine Road. Someone had nailed another sign beneath it. Newer wood, fresh paint. Only 3 words. No fire returns. A cold breeze drifted through the trees. None of the firefighters noticed. The sign hadn't been there 1 second earlier, because every one of them was staring farther down the road. Beyond the sign, they could finally see it. Far away, through the forest, an orange glow rose into the night sky. Not sunrise, not city lights. Fire. A house was burning. Captain Jack Morrison stared at the orange glow rising above the pine trees. There was no doubt anymore. A structure was burning. The flames climbed far above the treetops, painting the clouds with an eerie crimson light. Yet, something about the fire felt wrong. Jack climbed back into the engine. Let's move. Mike shifted into gear. The heavy fire engine rolled past the old wooden sign and entered Black Pine Road. Immediately, everyone noticed the silence. No rain, no wind, No insects, no birds. Even the engine sounded strangely muffled, as though the forest itself was swallowing every sound. Eric looked out the side window. "I've never seen a fire this bright." Jack didn't answer. He was watching the smoke, or rather, the lack of it. Every house fire produced thick black smoke, especially one this large. But above the burning farmhouse, there was almost none. Only orange light, almost beautiful. Mike frowned. "That's impossible." Jack nodded slowly. "It should be smoking like a factory." The engine continued another half-mile before the trees suddenly opened. The farmhouse finally came into view. Everyone inside the cab fell silent. The house was enormous. A two-story white farmhouse with a large wraparound porch. An old red barn stood behind it. Several oak trees surrounded the property. The entire building was engulfed in flames. Fire poured from every window. The roof burned like paper. Yet, the grass surrounding the house remained perfectly green. Not a single blade had caught fire. Jack immediately began giving orders. "Mike, supply line. Eric, search equipment. Sam, medical bags." Nobody questioned him. Training took over. Within seconds, everyone jumped from the engine. Jack grabbed the portable radio. "Dispatch. This is Engine 3. We have a fully involved residential structure. No visible exposures. Beginning rescue operations." Only static answered. He tried again. Nothing. The radio was dead. Mike connected the engine to its onboard water tank while Eric pulled the first attack line. Everything happened exactly as it had hundreds of times before. Routine, professional, controlled, until Sam suddenly stopped walking. "What?" Jack asked. Sam pointed toward the front porch. "There." Everyone looked. A rocking chair, slowly moving, back, forth, completely on its own. Eric frowned. "Wind." Jack looked around. Not a single tree branch moved. There wasn't any wind. Yet the chair continued rocking gently, almost peacefully. Mike muttered, "I don't like this place." Jack didn't either. But the possibility of trapped victims came first. Always, he looked toward the upstairs windows. Fire filled every room. No movement, no silhouettes, no cries for help. Nothing, only flames. Then, a little girl appeared, standing at the second-floor bedroom window. She couldn't have been older than 9. Long blonde hair, white nightgown, both hands pressed against the glass. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't crying. She simply watched them. Jack immediately pointed. "Victim. Second floor. Front bedroom." Eric saw her too. "I got her." He grabbed the ladder from the truck. Mike ran to help. Jack looked back toward the window. The girl was gone. He blinked. Nothing. Only fire. Eric shouted, "Where'd she go?" Jack answered, "I don't know." The ladder slammed against the side of the house. Eric climbed without hesitation. 1 rung, 2, 3. Heat poured from the burning wall. Smoke should have been unbearable. Yet strangely, he wasn't coughing. Halfway up, Eric suddenly stopped. He looked inside the bedroom, completely still. Jack shouted, "Eric!" No response. "Eric!" The young firefighter remained frozen, as though staring at something impossible. Mike climbed halfway up after him. "What is it?" Eric answered so quietly that Jack almost couldn't hear him. "The room isn't burning." Jack frowned. "What?" Eric slowly turned around. His face had gone completely pale. "The fire. It's only outside." Jack immediately climbed the ladder himself. The heat disappeared the moment he reached the window. He carefully looked inside. His heartbeat stopped. The bedroom was untouched, perfectly clean. A neatly made bed, children's toys, a bookshelf, pink curtains. Not a single burn mark. Not one. Outside, the entire house was engulfed in flames. Inside, it looked as though no fire had ever existed. Jack climbed through the window. His boots landed softly on polished wooden flooring. Cool, not hot. The room smelled of fresh lavender. Not smoke, He slowly looked around. Everything appeared normal, almost too normal. Then he noticed the family photograph sitting on the dresser. A smiling man, a smiling woman, a little blonde girl standing between them. The same girl they had just seen at the window. Jack picked up the frame. Something had been written across the bottom in faded ink. The Harper family. October 1974. Jack frowned. 1974? That didn't make sense. The girl in the photograph looked exactly the same age as the girl at the window. She hadn't aged a single day. Suddenly, a child's laughter echoed somewhere deeper inside the house. Soft, happy, as though someone were playing hide and seek. Eric slowly whispered, "Did you hear that?" Jack nodded. The laughter came again. This time, from the hallway, Jack stepped toward the bedroom door. He reached for the brass handle. Felt ice cold. He slowly turned it. The hallway beyond was completely dark. No fire, no smoke, only darkness stretching toward the staircase. Then, a little girl's voice drifted through the silence. Gentle, almost playful. "You're late." Jack froze. The voice continued. "Mommy said firefighters always come." Pause. Then, "But you didn't come last time." Every hair on Jack's arms stood up, because nobody on his crew had ever responded to a fire at the Harper farm. Yet somehow, whatever was waiting in that hallway believed they already had. Captain Jack Morrison stood motionless in the bedroom doorway. The little girl's voice had vanished. Only silence remained. Not the silence of an empty house. The silence of someone waiting. Behind him, Eric whispered, "Captain, this place isn't real." Jack didn't answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the dark hallway. Years of experience had taught him something important. Fire could fool your eyes. Smoke could make you hear things. Fear could create illusions. But fear couldn't make an entire burning house remain perfectly untouched inside. Something else was happening. Jack slowly keyed his portable radio. "Mike!" No response. He tried again. "Mike, come in." Only static. Then, a voice answered. Not Mike. Not dispatch. A calm female voice, barely above a whisper. "Second floor. Please hurry." Jack immediately looked toward Eric. "You hear that?" Eric nodded slowly. "That wasn't the radio." Sam's voice suddenly echoed from outside. "Captain, we lost visual on you." Jack rushed back to the bedroom window. Below, Mike and Sam stood beside the ladder. Both men stared upward, confused. Mike cupped his hands around his mouth. "Captain, there's nobody up there." Jack frowned. "What? I'm right here." He waved. Neither firefighter reacted. It was as though they couldn't see him. Eric stepped beside the window. "I'm waving too." Still, nothing. Mike looked directly at the bedroom window, yet his eyes passed straight through them, as though the room didn't exist. Jack's heartbeat quickened. "Eric, step back." Both men slowly moved away from the window. Instantly, Mike shouted, "There you are." Jack froze. Mike continued, "Captain, where'd you go?" Jack exchanged a glance with Eric. Neither of them had moved more than 3 feet. Something inside this house was hiding them. Jack climbed back into the hallway. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness. The corridor stretched much farther than the house should have allowed. From outside, the farmhouse looked roughly 60 feet long. Inside, the hallway seemed endless. Door after door lined both sides, each painted white, each perfectly closed. Eric whispered, "How big was this house supposed to be?" Jack quietly replied, "Not this big." The laughter returned. Closer now. Somewhere downstairs. A little girl humming softly. The tune sounded familiar. Jack couldn't remember where he'd heard it, only that it felt painfully familiar. He began moving, one careful step at a time. The old wooden floor never creaked. That bothered him. Houses built before World War II always creaked, especially under firefighter boots. This one remained perfectly silent. Halfway down the hallway, Jack noticed family photographs covering the walls. Dozens of them. Every photograph showed the same family. Mother, father, little blonde daughter. Always smiling, always together. But something changed from picture to picture. Not their faces. The dates. 1969. Emily looked 8 years old. 1971. Still 8. 1974. Still 8. 1978. Still 8. Jack slowly lowered his flashlight. His pulse began pounding inside his ears. Eric stopped beside another photograph. Captain. Jack turned. Eric pointed toward the picture. The father. Jack looked carefully. In every photograph, the father's face became darker. Not burned, not blurred, just harder to recognize. By the final picture, his face had become almost completely black, as though someone had covered it with charcoal. Only his eyes remained visible. Jack quietly whispered, "Don't touch anything." The humming stopped. Instantly, the silence that followed felt heavier than before. Then, a floorboard creaked. Not beneath them, below. Someone had just walked across the first floor. Jack raised one hand. Eric immediately stopped moving. Another footstep, slow, measured, crossing the living room. Then another. Whatever it wasn't trying to hide anymore. Jack carefully approached the staircase. His flashlight beam reached the bottom. Empty. The living room looked untouched. An old fireplace, bookshelves, a grandfather clock, everything covered in a thin layer of dust. No fire, no smoke, no footprints. Then, the grandfather clock chimed. 12, 1, 2, 3, until the 12th chime echoed through the house. The final note lingered unnaturally long. Jack checked his wristwatch. 11:58 p.m. The clock downstairs read exactly midnight. Eric frowned. It shouldn't. Before he finished, every family photograph along the hallway suddenly fell from the walls. At once, glass exploded across the wooden floor. The sound echoed like gunfire. Jack spun around. One frame remained hanging. Only one. The newest photograph. Dated October 18th, 1989. Tonight, Jack slowly stepped closer. His flashlight trembled. The photograph showed 4 firefighters standing beside a fire engine. Engine 3, Mike, Eric, Sam, and Jack. Exactly as they looked tonight. Same uniforms, same helmets, same rain-soaked gear. Behind them stood the little blonde girl, smiling, holding someone's hand. Jack's breathing stopped, because the hand she was holding belonged to a tall man dressed entirely in black. His face couldn't be seen, only the old wide-brimmed hat. Across the bottom of the photograph, someone had written a sentence in neat black ink. "Thank you for coming back." Before anyone could speak, a loud crash echoed from downstairs, followed immediately by Mike's terrified voice. "Captain, get out of the house." Then, another voice answered him. It sounded exactly like Jack Morrison. Calm, clear, standing somewhere below. "Don't worry, Mike. I'm already coming down." Jack slowly looked at Eric. Neither of them had moved from the second floor, which meant someone else was using Jack's voice. Mike's terrified scream echoed through the entire farmhouse. "Captain, get out of the house." Jack rushed toward the staircase. Eric followed only inches behind him. Their boots pounded across the old wooden floor. The flashlight beams danced wildly over the walls. Just as they reached the top step, they froze. Someone was already climbing toward them. Heavy firefighter boots, yellow turnout coat, white helmet, reflective stripes, exactly the same gear Jack was wearing. Only, his face remained hidden in darkness. The figure climbed one step at a time, slowly, calmly, never looking up. Jack instinctively raised his Halligan tool. "Stop!" The figure ignored him. Another step, then another. Eric shouted, "Captain, what do we do?" Jack didn't answer. His training had never prepared him for confronting himself. The figure finally reached the top landing, then slowly raised its head. Jack felt every muscle in his body lock. It was him. Every scar, every wrinkle, even the small burn mark beneath his left eye. Everything identical. The only difference, its eyes, completely black. No pupils, no whites, only endless darkness. The other Jack smiled, not cruelly, almost sympathetically, then spoke, exactly with Jack's voice. "You're late again." Eric took one terrified step backward. "What? What the hell is that?" The duplicate ignored Eric completely. Its eyes remained fixed on Jack. Jack forced himself to speak. "Who are you?" The duplicate answered without hesitation. "You." Silence. Jack tightened his grip on the Halligan. "No, I'm standing right here." The duplicate smiled wider. Not for long. Without warning, every light inside the farmhouse went out. Complete darkness swallowed the hallway. Only the firefighters' flashlights remained. Jack swept his beam across the landing. The duplicate had vanished. No footsteps, no doors opening, nothing. It had simply disappeared. Eric whispered, "Captain, behind us." Jack spun around. The hallway was empty. Every broken picture frame remained exactly where it had fallen. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. Then, the little girl's laughter echoed again. Closer, almost beside them. Not frightening, just sad. Jack spoke softly. "Emily?" The laughter stopped immediately. A tiny voice answered from somewhere nearby. Daddy couldn't tell either. Jack frowned. "What do you mean?" Silence. Then, he talked to the wrong one. A chill ran through Jack's body. He suddenly realized why the duplicate hadn't attacked him. It didn't need to. It only needed someone to mistake it for the real person. Downstairs, Mike shouted again. "Captain, this house is collapsing." Jack rushed back toward the bedroom window. He looked outside. His heart nearly stopped. Mike and Sam weren't looking at the second floor anymore. They were staring at the front porch, talking to someone. Jack followed their gaze. Standing beside Engine 3 was another Jack Morrison. Rain soaked his turnout gear. He calmly gave orders, pointed toward the burning house, spoke naturally. Mike and Sam obeyed every command without hesitation. Eric gasped. "They think that's you." Jack felt cold panic spread through his chest. The thing inside the house had already left. Outside, the fake Jack pointed toward the front entrance. Mike immediately grabbed another hose line. Sam picked up an axe. They began walking toward the burning doorway. Jack slammed both hands against the bedroom window. "Mike, stop!" He shouted until his throat burned. Neither firefighter reacted. It was as though the glass blocked not only sound, but existence itself. The fake Jack slowly turned toward the second-floor window. He looked directly at the real Jack, then smiled. Slowly, he raised one finger, not pointing, not threatening, simply placing it against his lips. A silent gesture. Shoot! The front door of the farmhouse slowly opened by itself. No flames spilled out, no smoke, only darkness. Mike followed the fake captain inside. Sam went in after him. The door quietly closed. Jack stared helplessly. His crew had just walked into the house, following someone. That wasn't him. Eric grabbed Jack's shoulder. "We have to get downstairs." Jack nodded. The two firefighters sprinted toward the staircase. Halfway down, the grandfather clock struck again. Not midnight, one single chime. The entire house shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. The staircase groaned beneath their boots. And somewhere below, Mike screamed, not in pain, in confusion. His voice echoed through the darkness. "Captain?" Pause. Then, a second voice answered him. Jack's voice. "I'm right here." The problem was, the real Jack Morrison was still halfway up the stairs, which meant Mike had just followed the wrong captain into the darkness. Mike's terrified voice echoed through the darkness. "Captain?" Then, Jack's voice answered. "I'm right here." The real Jack Morrison was still halfway down the staircase, which meant someone else had reached Mike first. Jack and Eric rushed downstairs. Their boots struck the wooden steps so hard the entire staircase vibrated beneath them. The flashlight beams swept across the first floor. Nothing. The living room stood exactly as before. The fireplace, the bookshelves, the grandfather clock. No Mike, no Sam, no fake Jack, only silence. Jack shouted, "Mike!" No answer. "Sam!" Nothing. Even the echo seemed to disappear before reaching the walls. Eric slowly turned in a circle. They couldn't just vanish. Jack agreed. They're here. They have to be. The front door remained closed. Jack grabbed the handle, pulled. It wouldn't move. He pushed with all his weight. Nothing. It felt as though someone had poured concrete behind it. Eric tried breaking a front window with the Halligan. The steel struck the glass with tremendous force. Instead of shattering, the window rang like solid iron. Not even a crack appeared. Eric stared in disbelief. What the? He struck again. Same result. The farmhouse wasn't trapping them with locks. The house itself had become the prison. Then they heard footsteps, running, fast, coming from somewhere beneath the floor. Jack looked down. The sound wasn't inside the walls. It was directly underneath them. Someone was running below the living room. Eric frowned. There isn't supposed to be a basement. Jack remembered the county building records. Old Harper Farm had been built in 1938. Crawl space only. No basement. The running stopped. Then, someone knocked. 3 slow knocks, directly beneath Jack's boots. Knock, knock, knock. Jack knelt on the wooden floor, pressed one ear against it. A faint voice drifted upward. "Captain." Mike, barely audible. Jack immediately answered. "Mike, where are you?" The reply came through the floorboards. "Down here." "Don't." Static. Then silence. Jack stood instantly. There has to be an entrance. The crew spread through the first floor. Kitchen, dining room, storage pantry, laundry room. Nothing. No cellar door. No trapdoor. No stairs. Nothing. Eric stopped inside the old kitchen. "Captain." Jack hurried over. The kitchen looked strangely untouched. Pots still hung above the stove. Dishes remained stacked neatly inside wooden cabinets. A kettle rested on the burner. Everything appeared frozen in time. Eric pointed toward the floor. A set of muddy boot prints, fresh, leading across the kitchen. Jack crouched beside them. Firefighter boots, size 12. Mike's. The prints crossed the room, then simply ended, right in front of the pantry wall. No return prints. No turn. No explanation. It looked as though Mike had walked directly into solid wood. Jack slowly pushed against the pantry shelves. Nothing. He examined the wall carefully. Old pine boards, perfectly normal. Then, his flashlight caught something unusual. Tiny brass handle, hidden behind hanging aprons. Jack wrapped his fingers around it, pulled. The entire pantry wall silently swung inward, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Cold air drifted upward. Not cool. Freezing. The kind of cold that belonged outside during January. Not inside a burning farmhouse. Eric whispered, "This wasn't on the building plans." Jack quietly replied, "No, it wasn't." The flashlight beams disappeared into the darkness below. The stairs seemed endless. Old stone walls lined both sides. Water dripped somewhere deep beneath the house. Then, a voice floated upward. Sam's voice. Calm. Too calm. "Captain, it's safe down here." Jack immediately knew. That wasn't Sam. Sam never sounded that relaxed during an active rescue. Eric looked toward him. "You hear it?" Jack nodded. "Don't answer." The voice continued. Exactly the same tone. "We found the family." Jack's heartbeat quickened. No, the dispatch information never confirmed occupants. Nobody knew if anyone was inside. Whoever was below shouldn't have said the family. Jack drew a deep breath. "Stay close. No matter what happens. If you hear my voice, look at me before you answer." Eric nodded immediately. "I understand." The two firefighters began descending, one careful step at a time. The wooden stairs groaned beneath their weight. 10 steps, 20, 30, still going. The farmhouse wasn't large enough to contain a staircase this deep. Jack looked back upward. The kitchen doorway had disappeared. Only darkness remained above them. There was no way to tell how far they'd descended. Finally, the staircase ended. A massive underground corridor stretched ahead. Stone walls, rusted lanterns, old wooden support beams. The ceiling arched nearly 15 feet overhead. It looked less like a basement and more like an abandoned mine. Jack slowly swept his flashlight across the floor. His breath caught. Footprints. Hundreds of them. Children. Adults. Firefighter boots. Bare feet. All leading in one direction. None coming back. Eric whispered, "Captain." Jack followed his flashlight. At the far end of the corridor stood Engine 3, their fire engine, parked underground. Its emergency lights silently flashing red. His driver's door still open. Water dripped steadily from its bumper, as though it had been sitting there for years. The engine they had arrived in was still outside, so there was only one explanation. This wasn't their truck. It belonged to another crew, another night, another fire, and someone had driven it into a basement that was never built. Captain Jack Morrison stood frozen. The flashing emergency lights painted the underground tunnel in alternating shades of red and darkness. Their fire engine was parked 50 yards ahead, or at least something that looked exactly like Engine 3. The same department markings, the same dent above the left headlight, the same unit number. Engine 3. Eric whispered, "That's impossible." Jack nodded slowly. "Our engine is outside." Neither firefighter moved. Neither wanted to be the first to walk toward it. The tunnel remained completely silent. Only the slow rotation of the emergency lights illuminated the damp stone walls. No engine noise, no running pump, no generator. Yet the lights continued flashing. Perfectly, Jack cautiously approached. One slow step after another. His flashlight swept beneath the truck. The tires had sunk halfway into the dirt. Thick dust covered the wheel wells. Spider webs stretched between the suspension. The truck hadn't been moved in years, maybe decades. Yet, the emergency lights continued flashing. Eric carefully touched the front bumper. His glove came away covered in rust. "Captain, this truck's ancient." Jack looked closer. The chrome bumper had almost completely corroded away. Paint peeled from every panel. The windshield had turned cloudy with age. Yet, the department logo remained exactly the same. Something suddenly caught Jack's attention. The driver's side door, written across it in white paint, someone had scratched 4 words. "We never left." Jack stared at the message. The scratches looked deep, as though carved with a knife. Eric slowly walked toward the rear compartment. The doors stood partially open. He hesitated. "You ready?" Jack quietly nodded. Together, they pulled the rear doors completely open. Inside, their breathing stopped, for firefighter helmets rested neatly on the bench seats, covered in dust. Each helmet still had a name. Captain R. Henderson, Lieutenant P. Wells, Firefighter C. James, Firefighter L. Morris. Jack frowned. "I've never heard those names." Eric hadn't either. A faded clipboard lay beside the helmets. Jack carefully picked it up. The paper had yellowed with age. Across the top, typed neatly in black ink, "Incident Report, October 18th, 1968. Blackwater Fire Station Number 3. Jack slowly swallowed. October 18th. The exact same date. 21 years earlier. Eric leaned closer. "What happened?" Jack continued reading. "Residential structure fire. 742 Black Pine Road." Both firefighters stared silently at one another. The same address. The same station. The same night. 21 years apart. Jack continued reading. "Crew entered structure at 11:58 p.m. No crew members returned." The report ended there. No explanation. No signatures. Nothing. Eric whispered, "They disappeared." Jack slowly nodded. "Just like Mike and Sam." Suddenly, the old radio mounted inside the truck crackled. Neither firefighter touched it. A burst of static filled the tunnel. Then, a voice. Old, weak, barely understandable. "Engine 3. Do not split your crew." Jack froze. The voice sounded exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. Static returned. Then, "It copies people." Eric looked toward Jack. "What?" The voice continued. "If you see someone alone, don't follow them." More static. "If someone calls your name, look at their eyes first." Jack's pulse quickened. Exactly the warning he'd already discovered. The transmission continued. "If they have no reflection, run." The radio suddenly went silent. Forever. Neither man spoke. The tunnel somehow felt colder. Jack quietly folded the incident report. "We're taking this." He slipped it inside his turnout coat. "If we get out, people need to know." Eric suddenly pointed farther down the tunnel. "Captain." Jack followed his flashlight. The corridor continued another 100 yards. At the far end, another fire engine sat in complete darkness. Smaller, older, almost completely destroyed. Jack slowly swept his flashlight across its door. The faded department emblem became visible. Blackwater Fire Station No. 3. Engine 3. Another Engine 3. Even older. Then, another. Farther beyond. Barely visible. And another. Different decades. Different paint. Different designs. One from the 1950s. One from the 1940s. One looked so old it might have been built before World War II. Every one of them belonged to Blackwater Fire Station. Every one had responded to the same address. Every one had never gone home. Eric's voice trembled. "How many crews?" Jack slowly counted the flashing lights disappearing into the darkness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He stopped counting after 10. The tunnel stretched so far, there was no end in sight. Every few hundred feet, another forgotten fire engine waited silently, like gravestones, each one marking another crew that had answered a call to Black Pine Road. Then, a familiar voice echoed through the underground tunnel. Weak, terrified, very close. "Captain." It was Mike, not an imitation, not a whisper, the real Mike Donovan. His voice cracked with panic. "Captain, please, hurry." Jack immediately turned toward the sound. This time, he didn't hesitate. Mike was alive, somewhere ahead. He tightened his grip on the flashlight, started running. Eric followed. Neither of them noticed that every firefighter helmet inside the abandoned engine had slowly turned, facing the tunnel behind them, watching as Engine 3's newest crew disappeared deeper into the darkness. Mike's terrified voice echoed through the underground tunnel. "Captain, please, hurry." Jack Morrison broke into a run. The beam from his flashlight bounced wildly across the stone walls. Eric stayed only a few feet behind. The tunnel seemed endless. Every breath echoed. Every footstep returned from somewhere deep in the darkness. Yet, Mike sounded close, almost close enough to touch. "Mike!" Jack shouted. "We're coming." For the first time that night, Mike answered immediately. "Don't stop. He's almost here." Jack felt his stomach tighten. Before he could ask another question, the tunnel suddenly widened. The narrow corridor opened into an enormous underground chamber. Jack stopped so abruptly that Eric nearly ran into him. The room looked impossible. It was larger than the entire farmhouse above. Old brick walls surrounded a circular chamber nearly 200 feet across. Hundreds of wooden support beams disappeared into darkness above. In the center stood an old fire station bell, massive, rust-covered, hanging from a cracked steel frame. Its rope dangled only inches above the ground. Around the bell stood dozens of fire helmets, neatly arranged in circles, one beside another. Every helmet belonged to Blackwater Fire Station. Different decades, different designs. some leather, some aluminum, some modern fiberglass. Every generation of firefighters had somehow ended up here. Eric whispered, "Captain." Jack slowly walked forward. Every helmet still carried a name. Some names were almost unreadable. Others looked brand new. The hallway beneath them had become an exact copy of Blackwater Fire Station. Even the bulletin board looked identical. The framed photographs, the old coffee machine, everything. Jack slowly walked toward the kitchen. His coffee mug still sat on the table, half full, steam still rising. Impossible. They had left the station nearly an hour ago. Eric stared toward the television. It was still playing the weather forecast, exactly where they'd left it. The meteorologist smiled calmly. Heavy rainfall is expected throughout the night. The same forecast, the same sentence. Frozen. Then, footsteps. From upstairs. Heavy firefighter boots. Someone was walking around inside the station. Jack instinctively raised his flashlight. "Mike!" No answer. Only footsteps. Slow. Confident. Crossing the apparatus bay. The station alarm suddenly rang. Exactly the same metallic bell they had heard before leaving. The garage doors began opening. Outside, red emergency lights reflected through the windows. Someone had just dispatched another engine. Jack carefully approached the bay doors. He looked outside. His breathing stopped. Engine 3 sat waiting, its emergency lights flashing. The crew climbed aboard. Mike, Sam, Eric, Jack, every one of them, exactly as they had looked earlier that night. The duplicate Jack climbed into the passenger seat. Mike started the engine. Sam secured the equipment. Eric closed the rear compartment. Everything happened exactly as it had, less than an hour ago. Eric whispered, "We're watching ourselves." Jack nodded silently. Neither of them dared move. The engine pulled away from the station. The duplicate crew disappeared into the rain. Silence returned. Jack slowly understood. This place. It isn't showing memories. Eric frowned. "What do you mean?" Jack looked toward the empty apparatus bay. "It's making them happen again." Suddenly, someone grabbed Jack's turnout coat. Hard. He spun around. Mike Donovan stood behind him, covered in soot, his face scratched, one sleeve torn nearly off. His breathing was rapid, his eyes filled with panic. "Captain!" Jack grabbed both of Mike's shoulders. "Where's Sam?" Mike didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked past Jack, toward the apparatus bay. His face turned completely white. "No!" Jack turned. The duplicate crew had returned. Engine 3 slowly rolled back inside the station. Its headlights switched off. Four firefighters climbed out. The duplicate Jack, the duplicate Mike, the duplicate Sam, the duplicate Eric. None of them spoke. They simply stood in a straight line, looking directly at the real crew. Mike whispered through trembling lips, "Don't let them stand beside us." Jack frowned. "Why?" Mike slowly backed away. Tears filled his eyes, because he already knew the answer. The duplicates didn't replace people. They only needed to stand close enough for nobody to remember which one had been real first. Captain Jack Morrison slowly stepped in front of Mike. The duplicate crew stood only 20 feet away, perfectly still, not breathing, not blinking, simply waiting. The fluorescent lights above flickered softly, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. For several seconds, nobody moved. The duplicate Jack smiled first. Exactly the same smile Jack gave new recruits whenever they looked nervous. Warm, calm, reassuring. It made Jack's stomach turn, because it was his smile. The duplicate finally spoke, exactly with Jack's voice. "Mike, you're safe now." Mike immediately covered both ears. "No, no." Jack frowned. "Mike." Mike's breathing became rapid. "Don't let him talk. Please. Don't let him finish." The duplicate Jack took one slow step forward. "I've already explained everything to them." He pointed toward the duplicate Eric and duplicate Sam. "They understand. They're staying." Jack gripped the Halligan tighter. "They're not my crew." The duplicate tilted its head. "Are you sure?" Without warning, the duplicate Mike stepped forward. He looked exhausted, covered in soot, exactly like the real Mike. He looked directly at Jack. "Captain, you left me." Jack's face hardened. "No, I never leave my crew." The duplicate Mike smiled sadly. "You already did." Jack suddenly remembered something. The old radio transmission. It copies people. And another warning, look at their eyes first. Jack raised his flashlight, shined it directly into the duplicate Mike's face. Nothing. No pupils. No reflection. The light simply disappeared inside endless black eyes. Jack immediately lowered the flashlight. "Nobody look into their eyes." Eric instantly turned his head away. Mike did the same. The duplicate Jack laughed softly. "You remembered." Then everything happened at once. Every duplicate began walking forward. Slowly, perfectly synchronized. One step, pause, another step, no hurry, as though they knew escape wasn't possible. Jack shouted, "Back!" The real crew retreated toward the hallway. The duplicates continued advancing. Eric suddenly whispered, "Captain, they're matching us." Jack looked down. His heart nearly stopped. Every time the real crew took one step backward, the duplicates took exactly the same step forward, keeping the distance between them exactly 20 feet, no matter how fast they moved. Mike suddenly pointed toward the apparatus bay. "The mirrors!" Jack turned. Along the locker room wall hung several large mirrors, used by firefighters to check turnout gear before leaving the station. Jack immediately looked. The mirrors reflected only 3 people. Jack, Mike, Eric. The duplicates had no reflections. "Don't look away," Jack spoke quietly. "They only disappear when we stop watching." Almost immediately, the duplicate Sam vanished. Eric gasped. "Where'd he go?" Jack's flashlight swept the hallway. Nothing. Then, footsteps. Behind them, Jack spun around. The duplicate Sam now stood at the opposite end of the corridor, blocking the only exit, still smiling. "They're hurting us," Mike whispered. Jack realized he was right. Every movement pushed them deeper into the station, toward somewhere specific. The duplicate Jack calmly spoke again. "Captain, there's still time." Jack ignored him. The duplicate continued. "You know what firefighters do. They save people." Pause. Then, "We're people too." Eric shook his head. "No, you're not." The duplicate Jack sighed, almost disappointed. "You really can't tell anymore." Suddenly, the station PA system crackled overhead. Static filled every hallway. Then dispatch came over the speakers. Only, it wasn't the dispatcher. It sounded like dozens of voices speaking together. Men, women, children, firefighters, all layered into one impossible sound. "Engine 3. Structure fire. Multiple occupants. Please respond." The announcement repeated, again and again. Each time, the voices grew louder. The walls began shaking. Locker doors rattled violently. The fluorescent lights burst one after another. Glass exploded across the hallway. Darkness swallowed everything except the emergency exit signs. Their red glow painted the corridor like fresh blood. Then, the duplicates stopped moving. Completely, the smiling disappeared from every face. They all turned together, looking toward the far end of the station. Not at Jack, not at Mike. Something else had arrived. A slow, heavy footstep echoed somewhere beyond the apparatus bay. One, then another, much heavier than firefighter boots. Metal groaned beneath each step. The duplicates didn't move. For the first time, they looked afraid. Jack quietly whispered, "What are they looking at?" Nobody answered. Another footstep echoed through the station. Closer. Then, every duplicate simultaneously stepped backward. Not toward Jack. Away from whatever was approaching. The emergency exit sign flickered once, twice. Then, a massive shadow slowly crossed the far wall. It was far taller than any man, nearly touching the ceiling. Broad shoulders, long coat, wide-brimmed fire chief's helmet from another era. But there was one detail that made Jack's blood run cold. The figure wasn't carrying an axe, or a hose, or a radio. Carried an old brass fire station bell, dragging it across the concrete floor. The deep metallic scraping echoed through the entire station. None of the duplicates dared look at it. Mike's voice broke into a whisper. "Captain, I think that's the one they've been hiding from." The scraping sound continued. Scray-ape, the old brass fire station bell dragged across the concrete floor, leaving a deep groove behind it. No one moved. Not Jack, not Eric, not even the duplicates. For the first time that night, everything inside the station seemed afraid. The towering figure finally stepped into the faint red glow of the emergency exit sign. Captain Jack Morrison had never seen anything like it. The old fire chief's turnout coat looked nearly a century old. Black leather, cracked with age. Its brass buttons had turned green. The helmet was unlike anything modern firefighters wore. Large, heavy, with a faded front shield that read, "Chief." The face beneath it couldn't be seen. Only darkness. A darkness so complete it seemed to absorb the emergency lights around it. The figure stopped. The enormous brass bell hung from one hand. Its rope dragged silently across the floor. Every duplicate firefighter lowered their heads. None dared look at him. Jack quietly whispered, "Who is that?" Mike swallowed hard. "I don't know. But whatever copied us, it fears him." The duplicate Jack slowly stepped backward. For the first time, the smile disappeared. Its empty black eyes remained fixed on the old fire chief. Waiting, watching, almost expecting judgment. The fire chief never looked at Jack, never acknowledged Eric, never acknowledged Mike. Instead, he slowly lifted one gloved hand, pointing directly at the duplicate Jack. The duplicate immediately shook its head. "No." His voice no longer sounded like Jack's. Now, dozens of voices spoke together. Children, women, old men, firefighters, all layered into one impossible sound. "Please, not again." The fire chief answered with only one sentence. His voice echoed through the station like distant thunder. Deep, ancient, calm. "You answered the bell." Silence. Then, "Now answer for them." Without warning, the duplicate Jack screamed, not in pain, in terror. His body twisted violently. His firefighter gear began splitting apart, as though something underneath had suddenly become too large to contain. Eric stepped backward. "What the hell?" The turnout coat tore open. Long black arms unfolded from inside. Too many joints, too many elbows. The helmet fell onto the floor. There wasn't a human head beneath it. Only darkness, living darkness, poured upward like thick smoke. One by one, every duplicate transformed. Mike, Eric, Sam. Their uniforms collapsed. Their faces melted away. Within seconds, for towering shadows stood where the firefighters had been. Featureless, silent, watching. Jack finally understood. The duplicates were never people. They only borrowed the last face someone trusted. The fire chief slowly struck the brass bell once. Booming, the sound shook the entire underground station. Every shadow creature recoiled violently. The walls trembled. Dust poured from the ceiling. The emergency lights exploded. Glass rained across the floor. The creatures screamed, not with mouths, with the station itself. Every hallway echoed with thousands of voices crying at once. Jack covered his ears. Mike collapsed to one knee. Eric dropped his flashlight. The bell's sound seemed to tear through their heads. Then, it stopped. Complete silence returned. The four shadow creatures remained frozen, unable to move. The fire chief slowly looked toward Jack for the first time. Jack couldn't see his face, only endless darkness beneath the helmet. Yet somehow, Jack knew the figure wasn't evil. The fire chief spoke quietly. "They copy courage." Pause. "Because they have none." Jack slowly stood. What are they? The fire chief looked toward the shadows. Every firefighter. Who answered the wrong call? Jack frowned. I don't understand. The fire chief continued. This place feeds on rescue. It cannot create heroes, so it steals them. Mike stared at the ancient firefighter. Those engines, all those crews. The fire chief slowly nodded. Every generation, every October 18th, the bell rings. Someone answers. Jack felt his stomach tighten. The dispatch, the farmhouse, the fire. The fire chief answered. There was only one fire. Long ago. Everything since. He looked around the underground station. Has only been the echo. Suddenly, the ancient brass bell began ringing by itself. Once, twice, 3 times. The fire chief immediately turned. For the first time, Jack sensed urgency in him. The shadow creatures also reacted. Their frozen bodies slowly began moving again. One step, then another. The bell wasn't weakening them anymore. It was calling something far worse. The fire chief spoke sharply, louder than before. It's awake. Jack's pulse quickened. What is? The old fire chief looked directly toward the deepest tunnel beyond the station. The darkness there was changing, breathing, expanding, as though an entire mountain had just inhaled. Then, another bell answered. Not nearby, far below, much deeper underground. One enormous metallic strike echoed upward through the earth. Boon! The fire chief slowly lowered his head. For the first time, his shoulders sagged with defeat. He whispered only 4 words. It heard us. And from somewhere beneath every tunnel, beneath every forgotten fire engine, beneath every lost firefighter, something enormous began climbing toward them. The second bell echoed from somewhere beneath the earth. Boom! The sound rolled through every tunnel. Every abandoned fire engine vibrated. Rust drifted from their roofs like falling snow. The ancient fire chief closed his eyes. For the first time, he looked afraid. Captain Jack Morrison tightened his grip on the Halligan. What is it? The fire chief answered without looking at him. The one who lit the first fire. Silence. Nobody breathed. Mike whispered, I thought the Harper fire was the first. The fire chief slowly shook his head. No, the Harper fire was only the last family. Another tremor shook the underground station. Concrete cracked. Dust poured from the ceiling. Far below, something enormous was climbing. Each movement sounded like steel scraping against stone. Eric quietly asked, What lives under here? The fire chief looked toward the darkness. Nothing. Pause. Then, that was ever human. The shadow creatures surrounding them suddenly became restless. They no longer watched Jack. They watched the tunnel. Some even backed away. Whatever was coming, they feared it even more. Then, the temperature changed. Jack watched his own breath become visible. The station grew colder by the second. 5 seconds later, ice crystals began forming across the fire engines. Mike stared in disbelief. How? We're underground. The fire chief answered softly. It steals heat before it arrives. Then came the smell. Not smoke. Not burning wood. Something older. Burned flesh. Wet earth. Charred pine. And kerosene. The smell was so strong it coated the inside of Jack's throat. Suddenly, every emergency light inside the station switched off. Darkness swallowed everything. Only one light remained. At the far end of the deepest tunnel, a small orange glow, like a single candle. It slowly grew brighter, closer, larger. Jack narrowed his eyes. Someone was walking toward them carrying an old kerosene lantern. The figure moved slowly. 1 step. Pause. Another step. No hurry. The lantern illuminated only its boots. Old leather work boots, blackened with soot. Then, the light climbed higher. Pair of dirty overalls. Burned gloves. A long brown coat. Finally, his face. Jack immediately wished he hadn't looked. The man's skin looked badly burned. Not fresh burns. Old burns. layers upon layers. His lips were gone. Most of his nose had melted away. One eye was missing completely. The other glowed faintly orange, as though fire still lived inside it. The man smiled, or what remained of a smile. Every shadow creature immediately lowered itself to the ground. Almost kneeling, the fire chief quietly removed his helmet. The ancient firefighter actually bowed his head. Jack couldn't believe what he was seeing. Even the fire chief respected this thing. The burned man stopped only 20 feet away. The lantern continued burning peacefully. His flame never moved, despite the freezing air. Finally, the burned man spoke. His voice sounded painfully normal, gentle, almost kind. "Another captain." He looked directly at Jack. "You came farther than the others." Jack forced himself to answer. "Who are you?" The man smiled again. "People gave me many names. The newspapers preferred." He chuckled softly. "The Black Pine Arsonist." Mike frowned. "I've never heard of you." The burned man nodded. "Of course not. They erased me." The fire chief finally spoke. His voice carried genuine anger now. "You murdered children." The burned man slowly looked toward him. "No, I opened a door." Jack felt the room grow colder. "What door?" The burned man raised the lantern. The tiny flame reflected inside his remaining eye. Every fire leaves something behind. Fear, regret, guilt. He looked toward the endless rows of abandoned fire engines. Heroes leave the strongest echoes. Jack suddenly understood. "You've been feeding on firefighters." The burned man smiled. "No." He looked almost offended. "They feed themselves." Jack frowned. "What?" The burned man pointed toward the abandoned engines. "Every captain who enters this place refuses to leave someone behind." Another smile. "That's why they never leave." Mike whispered, "Oh my God." The burned man slowly looked around the chamber. "Every year, one crew, one rescue, one more echo." He sighed happily. "The house only exists because men like you keep trying to save it." Jack's heart sank. There had never been an endless curse. There had never been a cycle that trapped people by force. Every crew had stayed because every firefighter made the same choice. They refused to abandon whoever was still calling for help. Then, a familiar voice echoed through the tunnels. A little girl, crying, "Please, I'm still upstairs." Jack instinctively looked toward the sound. The burned man smiled wider. "There she is. Go save her." The fire chief suddenly shouted, the loudest Jack had ever heard him. "Don't listen." The cry echoed through every tunnel. The burned man didn't even flinch. Instead, he looked directly into Jack's eyes. For the first time, the orange glow inside his remaining eye brightened. "Captain Morrison, how many children are you willing to leave behind?" Jack's breathing stopped, because the crying voice upstairs was no longer only Emily Harper. Now, he heard dozens of children crying, then hundreds, calling his name, begging him to come, begging him to save them. The sound filled every hallway, every tunnel, every corner of the underground station. And Jack Morrison realized this wasn't a fight against a monster. It was a fight against the one thing every firefighter feared most: walking away from someone who might still be alive. Captain Jack Morrison closed his eyes. The cries filled every corner of the underground station. Children, women, firefighters, dozens, then hundreds, all calling his name. "Captain, help us, please." Every instinct inside him screamed to run toward those voices. That instinct had guided his entire career. For 18 years, whenever someone cried for help, he ran, never away, always toward danger. That was what firefighters did. The burned man smiled. He already knew what Jack was thinking. "You hear them, don't you?" Jack didn't answer. "You know they're still alive." Another smile. "You know you can't leave." The fire chief suddenly stepped between them. His old leather boots echoed sharply across the concrete. "No." The burned man looked amused. "You think he can?" The fire chief answered quietly. I know he can. Jack slowly opened his eyes. He looked toward the endless darkness where the voices echoed. Then, he looked back at Mike, Eric. Both men looked exhausted, terrified, but alive. Jack suddenly remembered something his academy instructor had told him nearly 20 years earlier. A sentence every firefighter learned. A sentence so simple, he hadn't thought about it in years. You cannot save anyone if you become the next victim. Jack looked at Mike. What did you hear? Mike frowned. What? When you got separated. Mike swallowed. I heard my little brother. Jack nodded. Eric looked down. My wife. The fire chief quietly smiled. They never hear the same voices. Jack turned toward the burned man. You don't call for help. The burned man remained silent. Jack continued. You become whoever we regret losing. No answer. Jack finally understood. The voices weren't random. The house learned, studied, adapted. It didn't simply imitate faces, copied guilt. The burned man's smile slowly disappeared. Jack had figured it out. You don't trap firefighters. Jack said calmly. We trap ourselves. Silence. The fire chief slowly nodded. Exactly. The underground station shook violently. The shadow creatures began retreating farther into the darkness. The burned man no longer looked confident. For the first time, he looked worried. Jack took one step forward. You've been waiting over 20 years for someone to choose differently. The burned man whispered. No, but it sounded uncertain. Jack raised his portable radio. It had been silent since entering the farmhouse. Slowly, he pressed the transmit button. Static. Nothing else. Then Jack spoke anyway. Calmly, clearly, exactly the way he had spoken on hundreds of emergency calls. Dispatch. Pause. Engine 3. Another pause. No victims located. The burned man's face changed instantly. Jack continued. Negative rescue. Mike stared. Eric looked confused. The fire chief never interrupted. Jack finished the transmission. Crew exiting structure. Then, he released the button. Silence. Absolute silence. The little girl's cries stopped. Instantly, every voice disappeared. The tunnels became completely still. The burned man slowly stepped backward. No! Jack looked directly at him. There was never anyone left to save. The burned man shook his head violently. No! You have to believe. You have to come. Jack quietly replied. No. The lantern flame suddenly flickered. For the first time, cracks spread across the burned man's skin. Tiny at first, then larger. Orange light leaked through them like molten lava. He screamed, not in anger, in desperation. You can't leave. You always stay. Behind him, the endless rows of abandoned fire engines began disappearing. One by one, like smoke blown away by wind, the helmets vanished. The underground station crumbled. Concrete dissolved into darkness. The shadow creatures collapsed into black ash. The fire chief finally smiled. A tired smile, one he probably hadn't worn in decades. He looked toward Jack. You answered. The right call. Jack frowned. What about you? The old fire chief looked around the collapsing station. My crew never figured it out. He glanced toward the disappearing tunnel. I stayed, waiting for one captain, who finally would. The ceiling began collapsing. Huge pieces of concrete crashed around them. Mike shouted, Captain! Jack grabbed Eric. The fire chief pointed toward a bright white light appearing where the tunnel had once been. Go! The three firefighters ran. Everything behind them collapsed. The underground world shook apart. The burned man's screams echoed farther away, then farther, until they vanished completely. Jack dove forward. Bright light swallowed everything. Rain. Cold rain. Jack opened his eyes. He was lying in wet grass, outside, in front of the Harper farmhouse. Only, there was no fire, no smoke, no flames, just an abandoned white farmhouse, weathered by time, Empty. Silent. Mike slowly sat up nearby. Eric coughed. Sam lay unconscious only a few feet away but was breathing. All 4 firefighters were alive. Jack looked toward the house. Every upstairs window was dark. No little girl. No movement. Nothing. Police sirens echoed in the distance. Real ones, not echoes. Moments later, Sheriff Tom Grady stepped from his cruiser. He stared at the exhausted firefighters. What happened? Jack looked back toward the farmhouse. For several seconds, he couldn't answer. Finally, he simply said, "False alarm." The sheriff frowned. "We've had reports from this place for years." Jack quietly nodded. "I know." As the ambulance treated Sam's minor injuries, Jack noticed something near the old mailbox. A small wooden cross, almost hidden beneath the weeds. He walked over, brushed away the dirt. A faded brass plate read, "Emily Harper, 1980 to 1989. Beloved daughter." Jack stood silently in the rain. He gently removed his firefighter helmet, held it against his chest, then whispered, "Rest now, kid." A cold breeze moved through the pine trees. For the first time that night, carried no voices, only wind, real wind. As Jack turned back toward Engine 3, he caught one final glimpse of the farmhouse porch. For less than a second, an old firefighter wearing a leather chief's coat stood beside the rocking chair. The ancient fire chief. He gave Jack a small nod, a quiet salute between firefighters. Then, he slowly faded into the morning mist. He was finally going home. Epilogue. Captain Jack Morrison retired from Blackwater Fire Station 2 years later. He never spoke publicly about what happened on Black Pine Road. Officially, the incident was recorded as a false alarm caused by faulty emergency reporting. The Harper farmhouse was demolished in the spring of 1991. Nothing unusual was ever found beneath it. No underground station. No abandoned fire engines. No tunnels. Nothing. Yet, every October 18th, the firefighters of Blackwater Fire Station still observe one quiet tradition. At exactly 11:58 p.m., they ring the station bell, once, not to answer a call, but to remember the firefighters who answered one they never should have. And before every new recruit begins their first night shift, Captain Jack gives them only one piece of advice. Every firefighter wants to save everyone, but sometimes, the bravest rescue is bringing your own crew home.